Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's community office hours. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Caitlin Croft. I'm part of the team here at Influx Data. And today we're excited to have Russ, who's part of our product management team, discuss InfluxDB Cloud, the beta. The open source beta.
Thanks, Caitlin. Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here. So should we get started? All right. Let me jump into sharing my screen and see what we have here. All right. So welcome, everybody. Community Office Hours, January 2020. Happy New Year to everybody. My name is Russ Savage. I'm a director of product management here, working very closely with open source projects across all of our stack. So anything open source, kind of take a look at. Looks like we've also got Samantha Wang, who is the product manager here, to help answer any questions that might need more detail. She focuses a lot on the Telegraph capability. We've got Joe Sherman from the support team, so works really closely with our customers, helping solve issues and problems. And we also have Michael Hall, who is our new community manager. You might see his name in some of the public Slack channels and community GitHub. So he's getting up to speed. And we also have Anna East, who is our developer advocate, who works with the community in building out some really awesome capabilities on our platform. So I'm glad to have everybody here. And as Caitlin mentioned, we're going to talk about InfluxDB Beta. And you know, this is the benefit of community office hours. We can just edit these slides right here. And this is specifically the InfluxDB 2.0 OSS beta. So we announced that last week with a blog post written by yours truly here. So pretty excited. And you know, the team has been working pretty hard on a ton of capabilities and improvements over the course of the alpha that's been out for a while. And so we're excited to finally press the button and move into beta. And really the move to beta signifies just an overall increase in stability, an overall increase in supportability, and basically to the community, like, we're ready to take on your workloads. And so there's way too many performance and stability improvements to go into here, but I really want to focus on you know, one of the new capabilities that we've never really had before in the platform, and we've never really and I think it's going to be really powerful, especially for the open source community and the Kubernetes users out there, but also for anybody who is managing an Influx instance, being able to destroy and recreate all of the resources in Influx very quickly. So really useful for developing and testing things. So today we're going to talk about what we're calling Influx Templates, which we'll describe in a moment. But at a high level, they're solutions that are kind of one-click install onto the Influx DB platform. And then we'll talk about manifest files, and that's really the underlying technology that powers templates and all of the work that's been going on there. And you know, I'm gonna ramble on for a while here, so feel free to post your questions in the Q&A, and you know, if Caitlin doesn't interrupt me during the presentation, I'm happy to answer those afterwards. Again, this is supposed to be an interactive session, so I want to hear from you guys. Okay, with that being said, so Influx Templates. So really our vision behind Influx Templates, they're applications that can be installed in InfluxDB 2.0, right? And so, you know, I think anybody who's used our platform before in the past, we've had the ability to import and export individual components, dashboards, specifically in 1.x. But in 2.x, you've been able to export tasks and dashboards and all of those different things. But we really haven't, we've lacked the capability to kind of package all of those things together. And so our vision for Influx Templates is a combination of a bunch of different resources that together make up a complete monitoring solution. So it's no longer, in order to monitor Kubernetes, right, you go and first you import the specific dashboard, and then you configure this dashboard, and then the goal behind templates is everything happens at the same time. So they can contain any combination of resources on the platform. And we've built this so that they're not just dashboards, they're not just variables. You can define buckets, you can define buckets, you can define dashboards, tasks, checks, anything that is involved in monitoring that specific technology for our platform. Can be defined as part of a template and then installed in your system. And so we're gonna kick off with a couple that are kind of to make sure that this concept is working and get everybody on board. So monitoring the tick stack. We have a lot of 1.x users out there. We want to figure out how to get them comfortable with the latest InfluxDB technology. So an easy way to do that is to monitor what they already have using the new technology. We want to monitor network traffic. So network traffic, there's a ton of it, and it comes really fast, and so it's really great for the time series databases. So really high ingestion rate and analysis, and so we want to build out solutions around specifically monitoring SFlow data and monitoring NetFlow data. But any of the network capabilities in Telegraph will make their way into a template. And then next, monitoring Kubernetes infrastructure. I don't know how many of you have been to any of the KubeCons, but there's a ton of energy, obviously, around Kubernetes. It's really exciting technology, and it's getting better every day. And so monitoring Kubernetes infrastructure is something we get requested by our customers a lot and our community a lot. And so that's a key area we want to focus on with these templates as well. So again, the high level Influx templates, they're really what we're calling applications that you install into a platform. They take kind of a generic time series platform and turn it into a specific monitoring solution for your application or for your technology stack. And the underlying technology behind that is called manifests, right? And so manifest files, for anyone who's not familiar, they're basically a way to describe any of the resources or any of the assets in the InfluxDB platform via a text file. And that text file format can be YAML, JSON. I think recently we added JSON as well. And the idea here is that you as an operator or you as a user, you can define buckets, give all the attributes for a bucket, and with one command, easily import that into Influx and create those resources on the fly. And so just recently, actually, some feedback from a demo we had internally. We've updated them to be compatible with Kubernetes CRDs. And so anybody who's using Kubernetes CRDs will find their format pretty familiar. And that means that our goal is you can leverage the existing Kubernetes tooling with these so that they fit really nicely into that workflow. You can create one resource or one asset. You can, as I mentioned before, a single bucket. You can create 10. You can create 100. The biggest I've seen internally is 300 different dashboards being created at once. So run one command and create that many resources. Really powerful. They're great for quickly destroying and rebuilding environments. So, one of the practices with containers, right, is the fact that you can just destroy the whole thing and start it up again. And so this makes it really easy to recreate that environment in Influx for any development you're testing, or in some instances, production instances, right? So it's also great for moving resources between InfluxDB instances. And so, one of the things we see our users do is develop a ton of their stuff locally on their local machine using an OSS instance, and then maybe promote that into cloud. And so this capability enables that workflow a lot easier. And so you'll be able to develop your template locally, test it, make sure that it's working and running, check it into a GitHub repository, for example, and have that deployed to your cloud production instance of Influx. And so being able to move resources between those really powerful. And then we're also internally, we're leveraging this to build out a migration path for our existing users. And so, our goal is to be able to bring all of the stuff that you created in Influx One, over into our new latest generation platform. And so behind the scenes, a lot of that is going to be powered by this manifest capability. So really awesome stuff that the team has been working on. All right, so let's take a look at what this actually looks like. As an example, and I was in the process of feverishly getting all of these different pieces together. So we'll see how much we got working here. So internally, we're just keeping this in a repo. We're about to open source this capability and open source these templates. But this is just kind of give you guys an example of what we're walking through here. So one of the first templates I described was around monitoring our existing stack, something we're super familiar with, and obviously a lot of our customers are interested in doing, but being able to spin that up really quickly and monitor those pieces. And so, as we build this capability iteratively, you see we've got assets that come through for dashboards that are monitoring the individual instances. That's fine. You guys are probably familiar with that if you've used Influx before. But that's kind of the manual process, right? If you look at following these steps for manually importing all these capabilities, right? You have to manually configure Telegraph. You have to manually configure your buckets and your instances. You have to manually import each dashboard. The power behind manifest is you can actually run this with a single command based on something that you've built and defined as a file, right? And so we dig into what this file actually looks like. You notice this format is not in the Kubernetes CRD format yet. That PR just landed recently. And I think we're still tweaking it a little bit. So this is still kind of the older version, but hopefully it still gets the point across. You can see at a high level, really basic structure of version, a type, or a kind, some metadata about that, and then a list of the individual resources that you want to create in the platform, right? And so we've got, in this instance, we'll start with a very simple example. Just creating a simple label, right? And so if I look at just to make sure that everyone is following along here, in our 2.0 instance, you can create labels. There's a bunch of them here. This is just describing via a text or a configuration file what label to create and what color to make it. And so again, it's just setting up the ability to define these resources. We go down to a little bit more complicated example, and you start seeing different charts here with different cells, right? And so if you look at, this actually defines a cell on a dashboard, right? And so this is a single stat display. It's called system uptime. Got some notes in here if you're not familiar, and then you've actually got the flux that's being that's used in that cell defined here. Right, and so again, you can define all this stuff via a configuration file and then apply that into your instance. And I won't go through all of these. We've got a bunch of different stuff. These files, I think the largest I've seen is around 1 megabyte, so they can get pretty big. These can be generated by the platform, so you're not sitting here from an empty text pad and starting to define all this stuff out. And one last thing I want to show here, and this is a capability that we haven't really had before. So another new capability here. So you'll notice one of the kinds is a Telegraph configuration. And so you've always been able to build out Telegraph configurations in 2.0 and host them and actually bring them into Telegraph. But the recent capability is that we're actually able to define any telegraph configuration you have, right? And so in the past, you've been limited to around 20, 25 different plugins. We've updated the APIs, big request from our users. We want to host, we've got all these custom telegraph configurations. We want to host those in Influx and fetch them. And so you can do that now. You can define your telegraph configuration via a manifest file. You can see here, again, it's just the raw TOML configuration that you're used to if you're a telegraph user. So something pretty straightforward. And you can define all the different plugins and all the different instances, and you're up and running. So again, new capabilities exposed via the API, and you can leverage them today using template files. All right. So enough talking about these templates. Let's see if we can actually apply them. And in this case, I'm starting with an instance that is pretty much empty. So if I look at dashboards, I don't have any dashboards. If I look at tasks or monitoring alerting, I've got nothing in there. The only thing I think I have still, I don't even have any custom buckets. These are system buckets that are there behind the scenes. I will go in and let's manually delete all of these labels again, just starting from scratch to make sure that you guys are keeping me honest here. So I got nothing, and really what I want to do is install and start monitoring my my 1.x stack. So I've got all that stuff running locally. So let's see if we can figure out how to do that using templates. All right, so I've got my monitor InfluxDB1 template here. This is the same file that you guys saw in the online instance. I've just got it here running locally. So let's see if we can figure out how to do this. Anybody who's not familiar, so InfluxDB has a full CLI attached to it, right? So if you go to, let's see here, I need to go to the right directory first. I believe it is, let's see here. It's in releases. We released one of those betas. You can see I do a lot of testing here. So this is the Influx CLI. Oh, awesome. Love Catalina, huh? Still working through those the new rules for running stuff on a Mac. As soon as I think the latest update there is that Go 1.14 is going to support package signing via macOS and Catalina, and then we'll be able to make sure that it works in our components as well. Cool. So you've got the Influx CLI here. The -h is the help command. You can see we've got a ton of different commands here to leverage this capability. But what I'm really interested in is this package command. So if I look at the package command, let's see what's going on there. I can see all the different capabilities to build this file. So I've got a bunch of different stuff. Export, which means that I can use Influx to generate these and then make changes to them. So much easier than starting from scratch. I can validate them, summarize them, all that sort of stuff. So let's see if we can install one of these into Influx here. So I'm going to move these Zoom controls out of the way and make sure that I've got all this stuff working. So what I want to do is send it a file, because I've got all this stuff in a file here. So -f, and this particular template or this particular resource is in, if I recall, solutions, monitoring InfluxDB, and I think it's monitoring InfluxDB template. Cool. So I've got that. In this case, again, I'm applying it into an organization, so I need to define the organization. Oops. So let's do that. And this organization is called Influx Data, no surprise. And then I also need to give it a token, and let's see if I can find that token in the API or in the UI here. So in this case, I can navigate to my tokens. I've got my master token here. For anyone who's not familiar, a token is how third parties interact with InfluxDB. This token is on my local host, so not a lot of nefarious things that anyone can do out there with it. But if this was a cloud token, this would basically allow anyone to do anything to my system, which not something I want to share on community office hours here. So let's paste that in there and let's see what happens. All right, so if we printed out a bunch of stuff, and let's walk through kind of what this actually is. So, like I said, these manifest files and these templates can compose of a ton of different resources. And, if you're defining a bunch of different stuff, you want to make sure you understand what it's doing before you actually apply it into your system. And so the first thing that these templates do is they print out all of the different things that it's going to do and all of the different changes it's going to make to your system, so that you can make sure it's doing the right thing. Right. So here, again, we talked about labels. You can see that these are all the new labels that it's going to create. Makes sense, right? Those are the labels that I defined and I shared earlier. You can see that it's going to create a bucket called Telegraph, right, with a specific retention period. I define that in my manifest file. And when I look at this all the way at the top here, if I search for, let's see here, type bucket. Oh boy, that's going to be hard to find. What can I search for that's unique? How about kind : bucket? Kind bucket. So you can see that this is how I defined a bucket in a manifest file. Really straightforward. I gave it the name and I gave it a retention rule to expire after this many seconds, which just happens to be 7 days. So you can see that here. The other new capability that we've added that's exposed via manifest files is the creation of checks and notification rules. And so anybody who's not familiar, in the UI, you've always been able to define, build out monitoring and alerting on top of your time series data using what we call checks that run very frequently on your data and generate a status. And then that status is something like critical or okay or a warning. And then those are picked up by notification rules and that lets you know via Slack or PagerDuty or a custom HTTP endpoint. So, there hasn't been a way to easily import and export these checks, but the capability exists in the API. You can actually define those in manifest files and incorporate those into your solution. Again, the goal is having a total end-to-end capability, not just a single one-off dashboard. So I've defined a couple here for disk usage and for Deadman and memory usage. Those will get imported as well. And then I've got dashboards, right? So these are the dashboards that are being created via this manifest file. I've got an InfluxDB 1.x1, got one for enterprise, capacitor, telegraph. You can see how many charts or how many graphs that these are created. So it gives you an overview of what's going on. Same with the telegraph configs. I mentioned that that's a new capability. You can define your telegraph configs in this manifest file. These are also here. Yada, yada, yada. I think same old, same old. And then creating more resources, you get a summary of what's going on. And finally, at the very end, I can hit yes. And I can apply these, right? And when I apply them, it actually gives me a summary of what happened. So, and the summary has all of the IDs that were created in the system behind the scenes as well. So again, I can verify and make sure that all that is working. But it's a lot easier to verify in the UI because if I hit refresh, I start seeing new things that have been created, right? And so again, we talked about the capability of adding these checks. I now have a disk usage check, I now have a hostman check, and I have a memory usage check. Those are the same things that were described in the manifest file. If I walk through and I look at the bucket, you can see I've got my telegraph bucket. Its retention is 7 days, all defined and set up. More importantly, I've got my telegraph configurations, right? So again, this is the ability to bring this and actually execute any telegraph configuration you want. So actually, let's get that set up and running while I'm waiting here. We're still working through some kinks with tokens, but as everybody, as you get more familiar with tokens, understand that you can leverage whatever token you want that has permissions to actually write the data here. So I'm going to use those setup instructions, jump over to my terminal window, jump into my telegraph instance. And again, this is all hosted, and I apologize for this is a little smaller than I'd like here. Yeah, so again, so this is telling Telegraph to pull this configuration file from my local instance and actually set that up. And I hope that I set the right parameters. Let's see. It's set to run every 10 seconds, so hopefully I'll get a successful metrics being pushed to my instance. Let's double check here before I jump and make sure that everything is working. All right, so it looks like it's actually successfully written some metrics to my instance, which makes me really happy because when I demoed this a little while ago, I didn't set up something correctly, and I felt really dumb. So now we've got in our Data Explorer, we should see telegraph metrics coming in, which is awesome. And these telegraph metrics are used to power the dashboards that were imported, right? So I talked about a couple different dashboards that were being imported. So we can see those actually running and working here as well. So again, the idea behind these solutions that are powered by these manifest files is it's one command. It brings in all of the different resources you need to monitor a specific platform. In this instance, we're monitoring the 1.x tick stack, but you can imagine this being used to monitor different services in Kubernetes, different services for your network, and it gives you a starting point to then go in and customize, right? And so all of these dashboards, they're defined via the manifest file, but now I can go in and make a bunch of changes if I need to. Which is really powerful. So, at a high level, that's kind of a demo of how manifest files work in the system that are available today, and how we're thinking about things in terms of solutions and total capability of the platform. A couple things I want to highlight as well that make it easier to create these. Again, you don't want to start from a blank canvas to build these out. And so if you notice, there were a couple other commands in that packager instance. One of them being, and I apologize, I'm really bad at keyboard shortcuts on the command line here. Should be able to instantly jump to the end of this, but I have to manually move over and delete it. So I can export different capability as well. So if I export, and I want to export a dashboards, I can give it the ID of the dashboard I want to export, and it should spit out a bunch of stuff. Looks like it doesn't like my unknown shorthand flag for O. So let's see if I can get rid of that and make it cool. So you notice that, again, this spits out a nicely formatted manifest file that I can then leverage and make tweaks to. So the idea is you can build the assets or the resources locally, then export them and check them into source control and manage them there. So you don't have to start from scratch, which is great. So if I jump back here and just give a little week recap before we jump into to questions. So again, Influx Templates, they're applications that can be installed in Influx 2.0, and so they're complete monitoring solutions for different technologies. They're powered underneath the scenes by manifest files. Their configuration is code, right? So their ability to define assets as a configuration file and apply those to the system. The latest updates, which will be out very soon, make them fully compatible with Kubernetes CRDs. And so anybody who's familiar with CRDs should find this really, really comfortable. They work in the same in OSS or cloud, and so it really makes it easy to move resources between them. If you do your work locally in OSS and migrate them to a production cloud instance, or vice versa, makes it really powerful. So some awesome new capabilities that have been rolled out with the latest move from InfluxDB OSS from alpha to beta. And these capabilities will continue to be iterated on and improved, and driven by community feedback from you guys, right? And so, this is where, we really want you guys to get your hands on this technology, try it out. We want to hear your use case. We want to hear your workflow, your developer process, and you can tell us all about it, here in these community office hours. You can tell us all about it in the community Slack channel, which our engineering team and myself and everybody on this call are in every day, talking to people and getting feedback from the community on new things we release. If you run into me at our InfluxDB booth at a conference, you can feel free to tell me there as well. So I'm happy to open it up to questions if we have any, and hear from you guys.
Thank you, Russ. It looks like we've already gotten a couple of questions. The first one is, will I be able to access a feature similar to Manifest through the UI?
Yeah, 100%. So, the way that we're building this out, we're building it out CLI and API and CLI first. So we always build components API first, but this one specifically is really geared towards operators and setting up capabilities behind the scenes for other users. And so we're exposing it by the CLI. We want people to get feedback. We want to make sure that it's fully working and fleshed out. And then we'll take the capabilities from the UI for importing and exporting and provide an experience there. The other reason is we want to make sure that the UI experience makes sense for people that are building these. And so, again, these manifest files are going to power the installation of Influx templates or Influx applications into the platform. And so, we want to create an experience where people understand what's happening and because again, it has the capabilities to make drastic changes. And so, look for this being worked into the UI probably later this year.
Perfect. The next question is also around manifest. How would I create my own manifest file, and what are some best use cases for examples?
Yeah, totally. So again, this is new technology that we've been working through. But and I want to hear from the community of how they build out any sort of configuration as code files. But the way that I find it really useful is to start from either an example that's out there on the web, or start from a resource I already have in my system. And so what I showed you, the last little piece that I showed you was a really easy way to take a dashboard that you've already built in the UI and export it as a manifest file, just with one line and the ID of the resource. And so I think that's a great place to start building your own. In the coming weeks, we're going to be publishing an open source repo that has a set of starter templates for you to get started. So that'll also be a great resource. And so basically, as we start rolling this out and as we start getting feedback, we're gonna be creating a library of examples that you can start from. Similar to if you guys ever used Kubernetes, right? Anytime I'm defining a CRD in Kubernetes, what do I do? The first Google search I do is basically Kubernetes, the name of the resource I want to create, and YAML, and that gives me a starting point. And so that's kind of what we're thinking there.
Correct. Are manifests easily shareable?
Yeah, our again, the idea behind manifest is we want to create workflows where you can leverage configurations as code checked into source control to manage the resources behind your system. And so, I think what we're working through internally and what we want the community to think about is, a lot of people have production dashboard instances scattered around their office, provided to different teams in their company, and they get requests to update or change those resources all the time. And what's the developer process to do that, right? And what's the maintainable process, right? It's really easy to jump into a dashboard and edit a cell. But the problem is if anything goes wrong, or if you ever need to recreate that, or it gets into a state where it's broken and you can't figure out how to fix it, how do you get back to a how do you maintain a reusable configuration that you can then apply to the system? And so, as we think through, and this is still in progress, right? So this is still, again, being driven by internally our workflows, and also by the community and how they want to work. But I think, at a high level, the vision would be being able to check out these manifest files from a GitHub repository, make the changes, test and verify that everything is working locally, open a PR, and that PR eventually gets approved and merged into source control and deployed out. And so we really want to support and promote a rigorous process for defining these, because dashboards take a lot of work to build, and they are really valuable once you have them created. And you don't want to have a bunch of breaking dashboards on your hand, especially a couple hours before a big presentation. So so that's kind of the experience we want to promote, and we want to be able to we want users to be able to build these manifest files, check them into source control, and incrementally make changes, and define a process around them. So 100%. And again, they're text files, so they can be shared really quickly. I share them all the time internally via Slack and all other tools, and so we hope that people can share these as widely as they can. And the other thing I want to talk about a little bit is anytime you've got exported data, or anytime you've got information, it could potentially contain sensitive data. And so the other thing that we're thinking about in our 2.0 platform, we have a secret store. We have our own one that's just based on Bolt, but you can also hook it into something like HashiCorp's Vault. And so that secret store is a great place for you to store tokens, passwords, keys, anything like that. And so the practical example that we have today is we have the ability to connect into PagerDuty for monitoring alerting. PagerDuty requires an API key in order to do that. And so if you want to you store that PagerDuty API key in the secret store, and then the people that are using it don't need the actual token. They just have a reference to the secret store. So again, as you're defining manifests, they're fully compatible with the secret store and fully compatible with environment variables. And so, you want to, when we're building these out, we're thinking about the flow of, you have your manifest file that has your credentials either in a secret store or maybe baked in. You want to share that out publicly. You want to create a process where you can substitute in variables that are relevant to you when you import one of these manifests. And so if you've got your own token, or you've got your own passwords or keys, where one of the things that'll happen that I didn't demo here, but if you've got those in the manifest file defined, when you import them, it'll actually ask you to fill in the information, right? So if the secret doesn't exist, and it could already exist in your platform, and then the manifest will leverage that. But if it doesn't exist, it'll ask you to create it when you import. So again, thinking about ways to share this without sharing personal information.
Great. Another question here. Please share more details about monitoring network traffic, such as NetFlow and SFlow.
Sure, more details. There's nothing like open source. So let's take a look here. So in our Telegraph repo, and if you guys aren't familiar with Telegraph, you should be, because that's where a ton of the magic happens for bringing this data in. We are looking at supporting a new SFlow plugin being developed. I think it's via pull requests. So 1 second here. Cool. So we've got new capability coming into Telegraph. This is scheduled for the 1.14 release of Telegraph coming in, and this will support ingesting data from SFlow. So this is out there in the community public. If you want to check out this branch and try it out, I encourage you to do that. If you've got SFlow and NetFlow traffic, we'd love to hear your use case. We'd love to make sure that this plugin works for you. It's being developed internally, but more community feedback, the better. So this is the starting point for all the network monitoring solution. And so these NetFlow and these SFlow traffic plugins, those will power solutions and templates that are being developed as well. And so right now we've got, again, this is a whole work in progress preview, but we've got SFlow dashboards that are defined for our 1.x. We're migrating them over to use 2.x, and so those dashboards will be available as part of the solution. Again, they're just like a starting point. And then on top of that, as we work to build this out in Q1, these dashboards will then make their way. We'll attach checks to make sure that those are defined for users, and we'll give them the capability and instructions on how to install, and we'll publish this to the community and via blog post and all that sort of stuff. And so that's kind of where we're starting from. But what you can get started with today is check out this pull request, build it locally, test it out with your SFlow or NetFlow traffic, see if it works for you, and give us feedback on this PR, because we'd love to get more eyes on it. It's something that I think the community has wanted for a long time, and so it's a good place to get started today, and then look for that in the next release of Telegraph.
Great. I hope that answers your question. Please feel free to post any other questions that you may have. Russ is definitely here to answer your questions, and everyone else on the webinar as well. So we just like to remind all of our community members, we have a lot of resources out there for you guys to find information. So we do have our community forum, which is where you can go and chat with users. You can come here for support, share ideas with each other, and ask questions. So we have people from the company as well as the broader community in there actively answering and asking questions. We also have our community Slack, so it's pretty easy. You can just join it by going to influxdata.com/Slack. There's a bunch of different channels that you can join to learn more about how to use InfluxDB, get your questions answered. A ton of people from Influx Data are a part of it, and you can find us. Most of us have a little blue Influx logo icon next to us. So if you can't get a hold of one of us there, our community members are often answering each other's questions. So it's a great resource for InfluxDB users.
Yep, and I check that Slack channel every day. So if you @ me, it's @Russ. I'll eventually see it. So sometimes I'm in meetings for a lot of the day though, but I'll get to it. Don't worry.
We also have on Reddit, we have our subreddit. It's not the most active, but for those people who love Reddit, we are on there. So it's another resource. And lastly, we have a bunch of different resources for our community members. So we have our community showcase, which is an area for all things community. So you can find upcoming events and find out where Influxers are going to be, and you can come talk to us at booths or wherever. Upcoming webinars, as well as articles written by community members. We love to share what you guys are doing. We often learn from you guys, and we know you guys like to see what's going on and learn from each other. So we have these community office hours every month, so feel free to come back next month. We'll have another interesting presentation. Come with questions, invite your friends. We're here to answer any and all InfluxDB questions. And they are recorded, and we do post into YouTube. So this will be posted on YouTube later today. Lastly, I just want to let you guys know that we do have an Influx Days coming up in London. So our call for papers is open, so you can register now for Influx Days, submit your call for papers. We're really excited to see everyone there. We love seeing our users there and love to highlight you guys as speakers. We'll stay on the line for another minute or so if you guys have any more questions. Thank you so much for everyone for joining today. I hope this was helpful to you to learn of what's been going on here at Influx Data and how we're helping the InfluxDB community.
And one last shout out. I think that if you are local or if you are in the San Francisco area or a major metropolitan area, most likely we have some sort of time series meetup connected there. So it's not just Influx; it's time series as a whole. So we'd love to see you there as well. And we're always looking for new speakers to meet up. So if you've got a big conference talk you want to practice or you want to come and meet other members of the community, those are great places. So keep an eye out for meetups in your area.
Perfect. So we'll just keep the webinar up for a little bit if you guys have any last minute questions. All right, thank you everyone. If there's any questions that you guys think of after the fact, post them in Slack or just bug Russ, he'll answer them as he said, or someone else from the team. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Yep, thank you guys for joining. Look forward to seeing you in the community.